started. Okay.
So we'll start off. I'm Caleb Angel. Yeah, I completely just lost everything in my head. We're going to go over the three channels of communication, but first we'll start off with introductions. So start off with you, Jessica, and go forward.
I'm Jessica Hathaway. I am lead business assistant at Purdue for the liberal arts department.
Okay. Adam.
Okay, I'm Adam Rails. I work at Subaru of Indiana Automotive. I've been there 17 years, and I am also like the backup team leader, and I've ran teams for several years off and on. That's basically it for the last 17 years.
Okay. Kelsey.
I am Kelsey Angel. I am a NICU nurse at the Women's Hospital in Indianapolis.
And then obviously I already introduced myself, but I'm a paint shop robot tech team leader in Paint 2. Basically deal with rebuilding the robots, making sure they don't go down. That. So I don't get to communicate with people, so none of this applies to my work. Awesome.
Lucky you.
So start off with communication, the process by which information exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. Communication is a complex process of transmitting messages from your own to emitting, encoding, and just getting the information into yourself. So it's a bunch of give and take for everybody. And then there's three channels of communication. The first one we're going to talk about is nonverbal communication. Basically, all the cues that people give off when they're talking, like you're moving your hands, you're making gestures, what your face says, like your facial expressions. If you're going to look mad during it, people are going to perceive you as being mad. You're going to get the reaction that you're giving off back. You guys ever like experience that at work?
Oh, 100%. You can definitely tell in a person's eyes. Eye contact is important. If it's an actual serious conversation between a superior and somebody lower, then you definitely want to have eye contact. You want to make sure somebody's engaged in your conversation. Because typically if they're looking anywhere but your face, they're really not paying attention to you or what you have to say anyway.
Yeah, I've been going through that a lot.
Sorry.
With training new people, when they just don't care, you can tell, and they're staring off into space. It's very frustrating. Yeah. You were saying? Sorry.
I have as well, but it's been more so with parents. If they've had a bad experience with someone else, I've came on in the morning before, and I can just read it all over their face. They're already kind of angry and putting off. You just feel it around them. And it takes a bit to kind of break that wall down for them to trust me and understand that I am there to help their baby the best that I can. And that all I can do is apologize for whatever has happened in the past. But this is what's going to happen today. And that way they know exactly what's going to happen. That way they can feel more comfortable with being in that situation as well. 'Cause it's a very high stress situation when your baby's in the hospital in general. But
yeah, I'd say that's way different than anything I have to do, because you have to communicate for your job on a very important issue to somebody that's not their job. They're there because of a situation, and you have to get through their emotions to communicate the actual importance of the situation to them. Whereas, instead of like two coworkers talking, where you're just at work, where somebody is just, that's their normal life. You're at work and you have to communicate with them in a totally different way.
Yeah, so like the biggest things about the nonverbal communication is like the way you present yourself. Obviously, kind of went over that, but it's supposed to be anywhere from clothing, makeup, jewelry, just how you're not just your appearance on your face and what you're doing with your hands, but your just overall appearance, how you're trying to present yourself to other people. Because like first meeting somebody, you want to try to present yourself to be what you want to be, not I'm just going to wear whatever. I mean, I don't care about your opinion, so I'm just going to wear the trashiest clothes. It is what it is. You think what you think, but trying to show that you at least somewhat care, I guess, is the big part of the nonverbal communication.
Oh, definitely. When I used to have to interview people for jobs and take in applications and in the past, and you could tell by if you're not willing to look your best or you're looking like a bum just to come in and either a job interview or just turning in an application, you could just tell by somebody's body language and what they're wearing, and if are they taking any initiative to do it. So then I can automatically see that maybe this isn't the best right off the bat. And you got to give your appearance does affect how other people, of course, think of you immediately on first impressions.
And it shows how much effort they're willing to give to the situation in the first place. Like, especially at work, if they're going to come in looking like that, then what are they going to do when they actually work there? If they're actually going to present themselves like they care to be there, or it's just another paycheck type situation. So, interpreting nonverbal communication, obviously everybody's going to interpret it differently because I'm going to tell you, I smile through every situation, but Kelsey can tell you my smiles all are different because I was raised differently. So I just have always smiled through everything, even when it's really hard for me. And it's just like, I have very few people that know what I mean, but it's one of those like, I guess I have a different smile for every mood. It's just what the rest of my face does. So anybody else might interpret that as, oh, he's in a good mood. He's sitting there smiling. But obviously, the more you interact with people, the better you're going to be able to read them. Like, you got to know that everybody's going to be different, but then there are certain cues that everybody gives off that kind of the same.
Yeah, I've always been told I have a customer service voice and laugh, and it's very much different than my normal voice and laugh.
Yeah, just nodding along.
Something like that.
Yeah, I totally get it. The next channel of communications, the most common for everybody, is verbal communication, the outward spoken word, what the meanings behind people's word are. That's the hardest part to try to interpret, is when somebody says something, you got to try to figure out what they're saying. Just because I say something one way doesn't mean you're going to take it the way that I say it. I could say something sarcastically and you're going to take it as, oh, this guy's just a jerk. He's just saying this stuff to get me. I deal with that stuff all the time at work, trying to interpret what someone else is trying to say, because it's hard to just go based off their words, especially the verbal is considered through voice or through written text. So I feel like that's the easiest way to miscommunicate is through the, I guess, the verbal, because written text is the hardest to communicate in the first place. You guys ever have any problems with that at work?
Yeah, I would say at work when it's written, you know, it leaves it up into interpretation of what we all think of it when they put out a tips or what other companies just email you. But then we see this and then we start to take from it what we want just by reading it. Oh, we're only looking at this part of it. We're only looking at that part. Some people get angry over this, and even though they try to explain it in great detail in those tips, everybody still takes something different of it. If I talk to my other associates, like, we read the same piece of paper, they thought totally different of it than I did. I'm like, okay, didn't think it was that's what they were trying to say. But so written is always the easiest to misinterpret, I think. But verbal communication face to face, that's the hardest for people to actually do. But I think it's the most direct communication. Verbal communication, most direct. I think you don't leave. You get, as long as you give everybody a chance to speak, you're not leaving much up to interpretation.
I'd have to agree with the tips and stuff at work because they're always putting out stuff that can be interpreted multiple different ways.
I deal a lot more with issues when the doctors are trying to explain things to the families between having their medical terms and then they understand everything. So they're just kind of rambling on. And if the parents hear something that doesn't make sense to them or something that they didn't want to hear because their baby isn't progressing the way they thought they were, they'll stick on that. And then they don't hear the rest of it. So they don't understand exactly what was trying to be explained. And then when the doctors leave, they always are kind of, you can see they're a little angry or upset and they don't know what's happening. So I try to be in there so I can hear what the doctor is saying, because then I can break it down and explain it to them better in a way that they're gonna understand. Like that happens the majority of the time when they get updated by the doctors, especially if it's on a very critical kid or like a big decision, whether the kid needs surgery or whatnot to even be able to go home. That happens a lot.
That'd be hard because there's a lot of medical terms that are extremely large, and you talk to me about them daily and they still go way over my head. I have no clue what you're talking about. So I can understand that as a parent thinking about their kids being sick like that. I'd just be focused on the words that I know that are bad. So
Yep.
I think that's another situation where like emotion will get in the way of good communication. Just once again, that's just another factor that it just depends per conversation what you're trying to have, and what you're trying to deal with parents. You're just overwhelmed with emotion in the first place, and then you're just trying to communicate very important facts. And it's easy. All of us take whatever we can from any conversation, and it's easy to get hung up on a certain piece of it. Then your brain isn't even hearing the next 3 sentences because shock or something like that, and you're just stuck on
it. Yeah.
Which that's actually a great lead way into the next part, that the paraverbal communication, which is like how somebody talks, like how loud you're going to talk, the frequency you're going to talk. Basically shows how passionate you are in the topic and how like the emotions get drug in to your conversation. So it's going to show if you're getting angry or whatnot through the paraverbal. If there's talking choppy, kind of speedily, like I feel like I'm talking faster. I don't ever talk fast. So, but I think it's because we're doing this. Do they have a lot of long pauses? Are they not fully giving you the truth or something? Because I feel like you can tell when somebody's pausing a lot and trying to come up with something on the spot. They tend to stop a lot more and try to think.
Yeah, they're trying to pick and choose. Maybe I need to say this, but maybe leave out this part for now, or something like that. If they're trying purposely to choose words rather than give them all.
Yeah, which I've been dealing with that a lot at work because we've been training a new guy for 3 months now, and he keeps trying to throw me and the robot techs under the bus, saying that we're not doing our part. It's like, dude, we've tried with you so hard. We pulled you aside for a half an hour every day to try to get you to learn something, and you're just not getting it. But it's our fault, and that gets frustrating.
Mhm. I'm dealing with the same thing right now. It is super frustrating.
Um, Trying to, I guess the next part we'll go through is communicating through conflict. So, like, how you communicate when you're going into a conflict. Are you clear with what you're saying versus slow and choppy? Or are you very open to the person? Are you crossing your arms? Are you giving off a sign that you don't want to be there during a conflict that generally leads to people misinterpreting what you're saying? Because I like to stand there with my arms crossed a lot just because I don't know, I find it comfortable. But most people find it as like you're not as open to what they're saying. I've read a bunch of stuff about it, but you're supposed to have your arms kind of down to your sides, kind of be open to the person. I find that hard to do. And I feel like I don't really particularly care for it when I'm in a conversation and somebody else has their arms crossed. So I can see where that's coming across, but I feel like it's hard to get yourself to not do things once you're done it for so many years. It's just a habit. And I know it's something we got to learn to get better at when we're
Mhm.
communicating.
I lean up
But
on the table a lot when I'm in a face-to-face meeting, and I just feel like comfortable, but a lot of people don't perceive it that way. So and I don't mean for them to take it badly like they do. It's just comfortable for me.
yeah, I know when I try to not close up, I'll end up sticking my hands in my pocket, and people take that as like something else about
Mhm.
like not being interested or being down on the situation. Like, reading into this stuff is something in its own because it's everybody has their own interpretation of what somebody is doing and how it's either negative or it's perceived differently than the way that they want it to be perceived. So
I think some people pay way more attention to the physical cues. You know, they're way more mindful of it than other people are. I will just talk to anybody about anything because, you know, I could always be sitting a different way and or crossing my arms or legs or how I'm holding myself or standing up or whatever. And I never think about if the other person doesn't think I'm listening. But what I listen for, I mean, is the response. You know what I mean? If somebody always comes off to you that way, that you have your arms crossed all the time, well, he's not really listening to me. Well, what's your response? You know, if your response is you come back and I can tell that you listen to what I said and we can have a good back and forth, then the physical really doesn't matter. But I think it ends up creating preconceived notions of somebody's body language or something. And then other people, either consciously or subconsciously, immediately they might change the way they're about to get into this conversation by the way you have your arms crossed, like, oh, well, this side's not going to listen to me anyway. And then, you know, already you've got a bad start and nobody said anything because of what we subconsciously already see in it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I actually completely agree with that. Like it's more about the back and forth. I don't
Mhm.
care what you're doing otherwise, as long as you're communicating back to me what I'm communicating to you and we're having an actual conversation flow. But I will say that I'm big on eye contact. If I'm having a conversation, I like to have eye contact because I don't, I just like to know that you're paying attention and actually involved. Like if you're staring off into space one way while I'm talking to you, like I'm gonna be like, okay, this conversation's over, so I'm just gonna get out of here, type thing.
Yeah,
Because
eye contact is the number one way to gauge engagement, to just tell if anybody is even engaged what you're saying with them. If they're giving you eye contact, it's real hard to do that and totally space out while you're looking at somebody in their eye while they're talking to you.
yeah, because like it's yeah, they're giving me great eye contact, the conversation is going to go on for a while because we can find something else to talk about. But then there's the awkward, silent eye contact, and then it's like, okay, can we like stop this now?
Yeah.
My boss likes to do that a lot, and that's not fun.
I think my job for the most part, like just working the line, all of us have just kind of gotten to the point where we can work and communicate at the same time. We don't even look at each other. Mostly at work, we'll talk in the direction of somebody, but we don't stop working. We just talk right through all of it. So, I mean, that's a different aspect, you know, than because we don't really get that chance. If I'm stopping to engage everybody and look them in the eye, I can't do my job right properly. Maybe, but most people can. But that's how we have adapted at work. That's how we communicate to each other. Now obviously if I have to engage a superior, yeah, then we're offline and we're talking, or we're stopping for a minute and we're gonna have a talk about this.
Yeah, I worked out in trim. I was only out there for 3 years, but the 3 years I was out in trim, yeah, you could be working under the hood and talking to somebody on the side of the car and just carry on a complete conversation without any looks or anything. But I usually gave
Never
like a
even
little
look at
bump
them
when I walked
once.
by.
Yeah.
See, a lot of my communication
Oh.
is through email and online. So I very rarely have eye contact with people I talk to throughout the day unless it's somebody at home or out and about.
So your stuff's all like interpreting what their words
Yeah.
through email are.
And there's emails you can tell exactly what they're feeling, what they're trying to say, the tone, how mad they are. And there's other emails and messages that it's like, oh, are they serious? Are they okay? So yeah, it's hard to interpret some of it.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I've got one of the robot techs emailed me this morning, and he's a very serious person, but then he'll send out really nasty emails, and he's like, "Oh, it was a joke," and I'm like, "Was it though? Was it a
Yeah.
joke?" I got one of those this morning, and he's like, he put LOL at the end. I was like, dude, everything you said was not a joke. I don't know if you're trying to make it into a joke or whatnot.
LOL
So
is the cop out for anything. Oh, you took that wrong. That's why I put that there. Haha, it's a joke. You know, like,
yeah,
it shouldn't be in emails. If you're sending an actual work email, LOL should not be an actual thing that you send.
I completely agree.
Unless you're not talking about work, then it's totally appropriate, which my coworkers and I have a ton of those emails too.
Oh, well, it was completely about work. He's calling out people's cleaning ability at work for the weekend, and then he put LOL at the end with a bunch of pictures showing everything that he thought was wrong. That's like, yeah,
Oh,
you're kind of
no.
serious in this.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
LOL can make that not serious.
Well, the last thing we have is how to get better at your channels of communication. And I think we pretty much all know this. In order to get better, you got to listen and watch, listen to what people are saying, try to interpret what they're saying, watch their body movements, their face. Are they sad, mad, happy? Um, how are they opening up to the conversation? And then just getting practicing watching people, practice listening to them, making sure you completely understand their situation and what they're trying to say at all times.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think now more than ever, less people do face to face, and a lot of people shy away from it, get anxiety about it. And the only way, like, it's not like I took any classes for it, but I mean, after all the years, you just kind of go through it. You have to do these things. You have to talk to people. You have to talk to your superior. If you're looking to move up in any situation where you're working with people, you're going to have to deal with people. And not all people are on your page. You're not on theirs. And you have to just dive in and get to it. And then a lot of it's uncomfortable for a while to talk to people. And then, but some people are just naturally good at it. And then they spend the whole time, they know what you're saying, but they're also the people that are looking at all your physical cues, you know, and some people just aren't engaged at all. But you got to communicate, and you're gonna suck at it for a while, and a lot of people do, you know, and everybody will question themselves and they'll look back. Well, what did I say? Why did I say that? And if you got to have some self reflection and learn from it to get better at it. That's for sure.
Yeah, like I think it's a Subaru thing, honestly, because I've never known so many people to communicate like the way that you are right now and the way that I do at work. Like I'm assuming you probably are just the same at work, because I feel like a lot of people are just very open to communication out there.
Yeah,
Even
I'm
people you
not
don't want to
afraid
be.
to say whatever is on my mind at work, no matter how terrible or to my boss. And I'm that guy at work. There's been several people hear me 100 feet away telling people what I think of them at work before. We have all kinds of communication and open communication at work.
Yeah, I had a product manager hear what I thought of him just on Friday, so we'll see how my Monday goes. But that's it. Unless you guys have any more comments or anything else you guys would like to touch on about what we went over.
I'm pretty good.
No? All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us and helping us out with the project.
No problem.
I'm sorry. Sorry if you guys can hear my kids